before one can enter intelligently into an understanding of cosmic symbolism, which underlies all occult science, it is necessary that he should have some well-defined conception of the meaning and purpose of occultism. Otherwise, he will occupy the position of one who moves in the dark, a slave to formularies and dogmas, following blindly where others lead and without any definite idea as to his destination. Misconceptions regarding occultism are very prevalent and are found to affect the thought of many who in their own walks are exceedingly learned. Occultism is a broad and comprehensive system of thought, a synthetic philosophy aiming at self-realization, and as much concerned in the practical development of the physical and spiritual powers latent in man, as in the study of those wider cosmical laws which hitherto have escaped scientific observation, but which are found to afford a ready explanation of man's embodied existence and the wide and varied range of his faculties, aptitudes, and individual characteristics. If occultism were merely a speculative system of thought regarding the hidden things of nature, it could never find practical demonstration. If the occult were merely the hidden, then Röntgen rays, wireless telegraphy, and metabolism would have been facts of occultism at quite a recent date. In the first case, it is confidently affirmed that occultism, so far from being speculative, is capable of instant demonstration. And in the second case, it anticipated the discoveries of science by analogous physical processes involved in the exercise of clairvoyance, psychometry, telepathy, and hypnotism. Occultism is not indeed mainly concerned in the domain of physics, but rather in those immaterial forces which are at the back of all material forms, of those universal laws which find their reflection in the constitution and development of man and the cosmos to which he is immediately related. Thus, while it seeks to demonstrate some unexplored facts in nature, it also offers a coherent system of thought in which those facts find appropriate places, and so in effect it affords an ethical basis for all action which is more comprehensive than any system which is the outcome of an insular sociology or a national religion. Its peculiar value as a body of teaching lies in its inclusiveness and Catholicity, its freedom from dogma, and its wide suggestiveness. While offering a definite system of cosmogenesis and anthropogenesis, it seeks only to throw new light on old truths, being entirely constructive and in no sense controversial. Unlike orthodox science and religion, however, occultism does not ignore the fact of man's psychic and spiritual experience. Rather, it makes use of these as links which brings us into relations with that greater world and that higher life which for science has no interest and for religion has no certain meaning. Thus, when science repudiated the Chaldean account of the Genesis, religion was left with no guard upon which it could convict science of error. The occultist remains wholly unaffected by the incident, not because he is either unscientific or irreligious, but because the book of Genesis is for him as true today as when it was written. It is the work of occultists, and only occultists can rightly apprehend it. In the biblical cosmogenesis, we are not concerned with ordinary divisions of time called day and night, periods of 12 hours each, more or less, but with vast periods known as pralayas and manvantaras, or periods of manifestation and obscuration, taking place alternately. These great periods answer to the systole and diastole motion of the great breath, the out-breathing and in-breathing of the cosmic life force. In each of these great out-breathings, the 7 stages of evolution are realized: the igneous, gaseous, fluidic, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human. But those monads that have reached any one of these stages do not become involved in the scheme until that stage is reached to which they attained in the last period of cosmic activity. But from that stage, they resume their evolution. Now, as we have every reason to presume that our present period of activity is not the first of our solar system, we have reason to place a special meaning on the words Berashit bara Elohim at Hashemaim veat hearts. In the beginning, the Elohim compounded the original matter of the heavens and of the earth. Long periods of cosmic evolution elapsed, and at the point where the great breath again reached our planet, we take up the thread of the Chaldean account. Veharth thou vebohu. And the earth was chaotic and barren. The use of the prefix vow as a copulative conjunction at the beginning of each separate statement links up the various stages of the evolutional scheme without defining the vast ages, the days and nights of the cosmos, which intervene. From the great aqueous development, we pass to the amphibians, the creeping things, the avians, or flying things and fowls of the air, until by a process of natural evolution and natural selection, determined entirely by the individual power of adaptation to environment, we at length arrive at the evolution of the human animal. The brief but perfectly scientific statement, "And God, the Elohim, made man out of the dust of the earth," is a process which involves an indefinitely long period of evolution. But so far we have only the ascending arc of physical evolution, which in effect found its apotheosis in the production of giant human forms, fitted to the great struggle for existence with the saurians and pachyderms, and all the mammoth life, both vegetable and animal, by which it was environed. There were giants in the earth in those days. Nature had done her utmost in the production of colossal forms of animal life. She had expanded all her strength. It was at this point where nature unaided would have failed, and in process of time died down to her root, as a tree that has put forth leaf and flower and fruit, that the upward arc of physical evolution was met by a downward arc of spiritual evolution. The two processes are well defined. God made man out of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of lives. In effect, from this union of spirit and matter, we get the genesis of the psyche or soul, and man became a living soul. The process of becoming is one that was neither immediate nor complete. Most of us are still in the process of becoming. But a certain number of advanced monads became living souls, realizing their spiritual consciousness while in the flesh. These were the sons of gods, referred to in the text. All else were the sons of man, and the sons of God looked upon the daughters of man and saw that they were fair. The self-conscious souls took to wife the daughters of a less evolved race, a process that would seem to be necessary to the further uplifting and spiritual vitalizing of the inferior grades of human life. During the present Manvantara or period of cosmic activity, we have traditional occult knowledge of 4 great races of humanity before our own, each of which attained to a successively higher state of civilization, the Atlantean transcending the Lemurian. As the process of time, the Aryan will transcend the Atlantean. And as each period of cosmic activity has afforded means of successively higher human development, it is a question as to what has become of those very high forms of spiritualized humanity who were the final product of the material and spiritual evolution of past Manvantaras. Earth-born in their origin and linked to this earth's humanity by 1,000 compatriot ties, by bonds of blood and heritage, by lives of tireless service, they wait the time when humanity shall have evolved to that stage when personal intercourse is compatible with their own spiritual status and the needs of our further evolution. To them, as pioneers, guardians, or masters of the race, we are in debt for the universal tradition which here and there is gathered up by occultists the world over, and which is realized in its integrity only by those who have fought their way to that place in the scale of spiritual evolution, where detachment is possible. To them is attributable the founding of the great world religions, and at the outset these sons of God were the spiritual instructor of the world. Each race produces its own crop of masters, evolved initiates, sworn to the service of man forever. As there is a natural selection, so there is a spiritual selection, and from the moment a human form is invested with a soul, psyche, that soul continues to progress. There is an evolution that has come along the natural line to the production of human lives of great faculty and attainment. And there is an evolution that has followed the spiritual line. Not all evolved humans are invested with the breath of lives. Thus, a man may be an intellectual giant and yet not be ensouled, for the psyche is one thing and the pneuma is another. The psyche or nephesh is common to man and the lower animals and is capable of immense development when investing the human form. But unless this nephesh is illuminated by the route of or pneuma, it cannot advance beyond a certain stage in the present cycle of evolution. Hence, the saying, "Work while the day is yet with you, for the night cometh when no man shall work." Specialized humanity is a composite of spirit, mind, soul, and body. The element or principle in man which distinguishes him from the animal, whether human in form or otherwise, is the mind. Only in this possession is he truly man. The word man comes indeed from the root man, Sanskrit, to think. The limitations set up by embodiment of this thinking self is the primary cause of self-realization. All forms of life are conscious, but only spiritualized humanity is self-conscious or individualized. The criterion of consciousness is response to stimulus. It is to be seen in chemic action, in vegetation, and in animal life. If the day's eye, daisy, were not conscious of the sunrise, it would not open its petals. You may call it automatism, a reflex of the chemic action of light. You will be wiser if you call it consciousness of light, and so spare yourself the trouble of pushing the question back indefinitely. For somewhere or other you must admit response to stimulus, and there you must posit consciousness. Thus, while the animal soul in man responds to stimulus of every kind coming to it through the sense channels, the mind responds also to a higher and immaterial gamut of vibrations. That is to say, to a spiritual stimulus. As man, he continues to evolve while all other forms of life remains in status quo. The monads investing them have not been caught up by the oversoul. They have not reached the stage where their mass vibration is capable of responding to the spiritual impact. They are not attracted. As the outcome of human evolution through successive ages, cycles and manvantaras, there is evolved the Christ, or perfect man. The mystical interpretation does not suffice. We require a living individual who shall stand to us for the man made perfect, through that same process of spiritual evolution, which is to be our own means of final liberation from samsara, or cyclic rebirth. The Christ is truly a generic title. The sons of God are legion, and all of them are invested with the spirit of truth or Christ principles. They are the children of light, the great white brotherhood, and at their head is the Lord, the gravitating center of this world's humanity. He is the manifestation in time and space of the inscrutable deity, the revelation of God to man. The mythological interpretation of the Christ does not suffice any more than the mystical. The sun and the 12 signs of the zodiac may well stand as symbol of the Master and his 12 disciples, but they will not suffice for the historical fact, for the fact is not limited to a drama in which 13 characters were at one time employed. It is a drama that is playing through all time, in all places, and among all peoples. It is the great work of spiritual selection and coordination, and the 12 signs are the 12 gates through which the elect of all humanity will enter into the New Jerusalem, or spiritual kingdom of a perfected humanity. Neither is the kingdom one that is afar off. Its denizens are to be found among embodied humanity at this day. The fathers and many of the early rulers of the great countries were special representatives of the spiritual hierarchy, which at a later stage in the history of the world sent forth its emissaries to become world teachers, empire makers, legislators, warriors, and inventors, each speaking the word that the world then had need of. Beside them to be found the occultists of the East and West, followers of their respective gurus, sadhus, yogis, and teachers, aspirants to the heirloom of the ages, the Gupta Vidya or hidden knowledge, with here and there a messenger under sealed orders, passing from one country to another, a host of psychic researchers and higher thought lecturers, the aides de camp, sappers, and enlisting officers of the vast army of recruits, regulars, and veterans who are enrolled under this standard. To the occultist, the universe is a symbol, and every part of it is symbolical. Although essentially an idealist, he does not attempt the role of those visionaries who would argue the universe out of existence. He may call it elusive, but not an illusion, for his own existence depends on his consciousness of the world about him and his well-being, upon the degree to which he understands and observes the laws of the universe, of which he is an integral part. For if it be said that the world has no existence apart from our consciousness, it may with equal truth be said that our consciousness has no existence apart from the world to which it is related. What we understand as the laws of the universe are formulated in terms of our thought, but inasmuch as the laws of thought are imposed on by the existence, it is clear that we do not ourselves impose cosmic laws, but we merely apprehend them. It is not in the idealistic sense that the universe is a symbol, but in the real sense of it being the embodiment or out-realizing of the supreme life and mind. As symbol, the universe is the revelation of all time, of the past and the future, the repository of all history, the source of all prophecy, the synthesis of actuality. That consciousness which is simultaneously immanent in all the universe is called the universal mind. The Platonic definition of God as that whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is illimitable comes as nearly to this conception of the divine mind as it is possible for words to compass. Man is a center of consciousness in the divine mind from the time that he realizes his spiritual existence, a soul investing a cell in the brain of the grand man. As such, he becomes subject to the higher spiritual laws of being and enters into the divine conspiracy. The evolving monads circulate and finally become impounded in one or another of the various organs of the grand man, in agreement with their several states of evolution, passing from one to another of them during the successive incarnations of the deity. In this effort to reach a higher sphere of consciousness and activity, a wider sphere of influence and a greater measure of free will, man comes to realize that obedience to the law of his being is the means of attainment. Thus every man is a law unto himself, and the truly wise are they who are able to say in all consciousness, "Thy will be done." For human safety and happiness are only assured by devotion to the highest good, and this is the occult view of the dependence of mankind on an all-seeing and beneficent spirit, in whose service is perfect freedom. Occultism, therefore, whether consisting in the development and exercise of one's individual psychic powers, in systematic and impartial inquiry as to evidence of these powers in others, or in the pursuit of such studies as astrology, Kabbalism, yoga, hypnotism, etc., reaches out from such vague beginnings into regions of thought and inspiration that transcend the average mind and are seen to culminate, in specialized cases, in the attainment of powers which may be called miraculous and of attributes that are truly godlike.